Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly thank you to our panelists, our witnesses here today for sharing your real-life experiences. This is very important. It's compelling to hear your perspective. As a relatively new parent myself, I appreciate the challenges even more. And I think that we owe the American people the diligence of getting our policies right and sometimes recognizing that the federal government solutions aren't going to solve the problems that we think they will. I'm concerned that in data recently released by the Bipartisan Policy Center found that mothers in the workforce face heightened financial insecurity. A recent poll found over half of working mothers reduced spending on everyday essentials like groceries and transportation because it conflicted with other caregiving responsibilities. I think we've heard you share that here today. Unfortunately, many of the challenges women are facing were created with the policies that have been put in place over the last year and a half, or they've been exacerbated. And I really am concerned that there is lacking the realization that, say, high gas prices could have been avoided, at least to a degree, a significant degree. I think that inflation could have been avoided, and reasonable, respected economists shared their concerns before some of the legislation has passed. But as it relates to childcare, I think this is a very important topic because we've seen proposals that I think really miss the mark. Aside from the question of whether or not the federal government should get so involved in childcare, I think it's important to note that 70% of families currently have in-home or a care provided in a center relating to a faith-based organization, even if it's just the roof over a building. And I'm concerned that 9 to 5 center-based care would actually do nothing for second and third shift workers. But the fact that the federal government would become so prescriptive in terms of what and where child care would be offered, I find that problematic in many ways, and I think it could actually be extremely counterproductive, especially when you look at, like I said, 70% of families currently have in-home or faith-based care. So, Ms. Huey, I appreciate your perspective here today. I know that when we talk about these everyday expenses, whether it's food, whether it's gasoline, it's my sense that it has impacted households, especially those struggling. And we heard earlier that, mortgage payments perhaps would get pushed aside because gasoline is so expensive. What is your perspective? What is your observation out in the workforce and your interactions based, reflecting on the cost of gasoline at the pump?
It has certainly increased housing, not just in delivery of products, goods, and services to the job site, but also in workers. I have one very reliable, very good carpenter that drives an hour to work, and he's told me he's going to have to go up on his prices because of the increase in gas. I've experienced gas price increases before, and I thought, this is not going to last. It's going to go up and it's going to come back down. And then I filled up my car and I was in shock. And then the prices have gone up since then. So it has had a tremendous effect on housing. That's part of the increased letters I've gotten this year is based on fuel prices.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's so much that we can do. We've touched on some bipartisan issues here in the past in terms of workforce issues and ultimately helping folks address the workforce shortage, because with the workforce shortage and the triggers for inflation, that hurts everyone. And I think there's probably more appreciation for that across America now, but it's painful. It is painful in so many households that are struggling to get by, that I hope that we can see reasonable policies put forth rather than rejections of domestic exploration for petroleum, perhaps, or for example. There are things that we can do, we must do, because I think it will help folks who are struggling each and every day. Thank you. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Let me recognize